Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 3902BN. Today's date is May 11th, 2026, and the title of the episode is The Overthrow of the U.S. Government is About to be Exposed. Trump confirms he is the hunter. Have you ever seen something and instantly know it's going to turn heads? That's exactly what happened when I saw the Trump Never Surrender gold sneakers. These aren't subtle, and they're not supposed to be. Gold finish, red, white, blue details, Never Surrender right on the shoe. You put these on, people notice, period. What surprised me most, they're actually comfortable. Solid build, lightweight, and wearable. Not just something you buy and leave in the box. These are made to be worn, not hidden. And the message hits, Never Surrender, isn't just branding, it's an attitude. Whether you're out running errands or showing up somewhere you want to make a statement, these do exactly that without saying a word. Even if they're not your style, I bet there's someone in your life that would support these in a minute, and they make a great gift. If you got a Trump supporter, a collector, or someone with an unapologetic style, this is a win. They're unique, they're different, and they're bold. If you want to grab a pair, our amazing audience will get a 30% discount while inventories last. Go to themagaoffers.com/X22. That's themagaoffers.com/X22. Don't wait on this. Inventory is moving fast, and once these sell out, that's it. Grab your pair, make the statement, and wear something that actually stands for something, or just click the link in the description. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, big tech fake news, the puppet masters, you can see they are in full-blown panic right now, because every step of the way, what is Trump doing? Well, going back in time, he allowed the deep state players to do what they do best: cheat, lie, steal, commit treason. And that's exactly what they did back in 2020. And he needed to make sure that they went out and they went beyond what they normally do to cheat an election. And this is why he needed the people on his side. This is why he needed the people out voting, because he needed the people to challenge their cheating system. When they saw they were losing by so many votes, they had no choice but to cheat in the election and overthrow the United States government. They actually made it very, very noticeable. He did this, I do believe, on purpose, so people could see the cheating as clear as day. Then, after that, what he did was he started to gather the evidence. Now, again, the military intelligence, I do believe at this point, already had a lot of the evidence that they've been cheating for a very, very long time. This is how they've been creating their system, installing the people. But he needed a way to make it look as clear as day to the people of this country. And when he starts to collect the evidence, he can back it up very, very easily. And ever since they did this, and even before this, they started to collect the evidence. And now, since he's removed Maduro from Venezuela, because a lot of the machines came from there, and that's where the cheating came from, now we have the whistleblowers from Venezuela letting everyone know, letting the Trump administration know how they were able to connect to the machines and switch the votes. And remember, there's many, many different pieces to this investigation. Yes, there's the machines. Yes, there's the connectivity. Yes, there's the switching of votes. But you also have the mail-ins. You also have the Secretary of State of each state, the poll workers. They were all involved in this. It was a coordinated effort. It wasn't just one person sitting there saying, hey, let's cheat. It was a coordinated effort, and they used the money laundering system to pay a lot of these people. So this goes far beyond just one or two people. This was a organized cheating system, and they overthrew the United States government. And now Trump has the evidence. I think he's had the evidence for a very long time, but he needed to show the people, look at all this evidence that we have. Look, we're able to bring the person from Venezuela. We have the machines from Venezuela. Look how they operate. Then there's going to be communications from other foreign entities. That's what Tulsi Gabbard is going to produce. So in the end, the people are going to learn that the United States government was overthrown by all the same players that were going after Trump from the very, very beginning. Remember, Trump is hunting them down, gaining leverage, gaining the evidence, cornering the wild animals. That's what a hunter does. The hunter is going after all of these people, these treasonous people, and he's actually trapping them. And when they have no way out, he'll be able to go in for the kill. That is what we're witnessing right now across the globe and eventually in this country. We're seeing parts of it in this country, but the people have to understand how deep and wide the deep state system actually really is. And I think people now are starting to learn. You see, in the very beginning, people thought, oh, yeah, I see some fraud over here. Oh, I see a couple people doing some, mail-ins where they dropped it into the boxes. Yes, people see that, but they say it must be just a one-off thing. It must be just isolated to that area, to those local politicians. What Trump is going to do, he's going to show everyone that this wasn't a localized incident. This was widespread, and it was directed from the higher-ups. And it was a coordinated effort to basically overthrow the United States government and overthrow the duly elected president. And he's going to show the entire country who was involved in all of this. And think about all the pieces that were brought together to do this. You had the illegals. You had the mail-ins. You had the Social Security numbers. You had the driver licenses. You had the CDLs. You had the machines. You had the foreign countries operating the machines. You had all of this working together. And yes, it's many, many more pieces. So he's going to show everyone how all the pieces operate together to form their cheating system. And think about it. When people learn that they were trying to remove the duly elected president, they were actually creating a coup to remove the duly elected president in his first term. And these same people went on to release COVID, to manipulate the elections, have the mail-ins. They kept going and going and going. This is the grand conspiracy, of course. This is what people are going to start to realize, that, wait a minute, it's all the same players. They've controlled the system for a very long time. They made sure there were no outsiders with their cheating system. And Trump now is exposing it all. It's going to make it a lot easier in the end for the people of this country to understand that it's always been the same people. It's been the same foreign countries that he's removing right now. It's the same treasonous people that were going after Trump from the very, very beginning. It's the same people in the local governments across the globe. It's the same people that have been gerrymandering. It's the same people that are trying to pack the Supreme Court. It's the same people that have been using USAID, using the NGOs, using the 14 computers. It's the same people that have been hiding the fraud in Minneapolis, in California, in New York, in Illinois, Chicago, in Seattle, in Oregon, in every single one of these places. It's the same exact people. And once people understand this, it's game over. This is why Trump is hunting them down. He's gaining ground on them. He's gathering the evidence. He's trapping them and forcing them to work together so people could see who the players are. When you really start to look at this, you could see every time they try to stop him by releasing classified information, just like Kelly just did, whenever they try to meet with their deep state players and people now know that they're meeting, everyone starts to realize, wait a minute, they are the deep state. They are the criminals. They are the treasonous people. And Trump is forcing them to work together, to communicate together, so everyone can see it. And remember, as they communicate, he's also gathering their communications because, again, they're under investigation. Remember, FISA works both ways. So, again, this is not going to work out too well for them in the end. And Trump, he has everything. Soon, all of this is going to be produced and everything is going to be exposed. And at that point in time, it's completely game over. Now, I do believe that at this point that they have no way of winning the midterms. And I think they're already seeing that. And I think their plan is to use all the distractions that they have. I do believe a cyber attack, riots, you name it, after the midterms, all the lawsuits and things like that, to try to create as much chaos as possible because they know that he'll be coming after them. The hunter is hunting them down. And it won't be one by one. It will be all together. So I think they're planning on their distractions after the midterms as we get closer and closer to the presidential election. Because, again, they will have no way around this to get out of it or anything like that. So I think they'll try to use whatever they have. And every step of the way, what is Trump doing? He's basically removing their leverage, removing their ammunition to make sure that in the end, they won't be able to do anything. Yes, will they be able to use a couple of their illegals, their Antifa that they've been paying? Maybe other people's, yes, will they have the brainwashed people out there? But again, this is very easy for Trump and his administration to take care of because once again, you have the counterinsurgency, the military working with the National Guard, the people on board. It's not that difficult to round these people up very, very quickly and send them to the proper warehouse so they can be deported or sent to jail. And think about it. He's already prepared and ready for the other things that they're going to try to do. Is probably going to be some type of cyber attack. Maybe there'll be a push for the pandemic, but I think that's going to fail big time. I think this is just a distraction right now while they prepare and get their cyber attack ready to go. Because again, this is all they'll have left. And once again, they won't have their terrorists. They won't have their cartel. They won't have their gang members. Actually, they won't have anything. So all they could do at this point is to create the distraction, maybe to escape. Just like Marjorie Taylor Greene, it looks like she sold her house for like $1 million something and moved to Costa Rica and bought a house down there for $5 million. That's interesting. We'll be talking a lot more about this a little bit later, but first, let's talk about what's happening with the Global Migration Pact that the UN put forth. Right now, the U.S. is absolutely rejecting the UN Global Migration Pact, and Rubio State Department has issued a statement condemning replacement migration and explaining why the U.S. didn't sign the UN International Migration Review Forum on May 8th. As Secretary Rubio said, opening our doors to mass migration was a grave mistake that threatens the cohesion of our society and the future of our people. And he's absolutely right. And you could see that everything the UN, the deep state players, Soros, and the rest tried to do across the globe by pushing all these people into the countries, it's not working here in the United States. Just like when you go back a little bit in time with COVID and everything else, when they tried to push the vaccine passport, when they also tried to push censorship, all of that is now failing because, again, we are following the Constitution. Trump now is reversing everything that they put into place. And you can see that the deep state players, the UN, they're having a very, very difficult time at this point. Now, the other thing that you could see is that other nations and the people of the nations, you have to remember, each country has the deep state players. They control the leadership there, or the leadership is part of the deep state players. And you can see the people in these certain countries, they're sick and tired of their installed leaders. They're sick and tired of their policies. And now you can see there are certain countries, the people within the countries are saying we've had enough and maybe we should break apart from our country. Maybe we should move to the U.S. maybe. Remember when Trump said that Canada is going to become the 51st state? Well, it looks like Alberta, which is the richest and most conservative province in Canada, they might be doing it. Peter Sayon, PhD, put this out and said, it's official. Alberta will vote on independence after years of abuse from the rest of Canada. If it succeeds, it's 80% odds Alberta applies to join the U.S. Wall Street Maverick says Alberta is the richest, most conservative province in Canada, and it's sitting on 3 times the oil reserves of the entire United States. The rest of Canada treats them like an ATM, then throws them in jail for misgendering. Albertans have had enough. And I think we're going to start to see this across the world. The people are going to rise up. The people are going to say enough is enough. And we're starting to see this. Let's see what happens out in Canada, because that'd be very interesting if Alberta becomes the 51st state of the United States. That'd be very, very interesting. Now, the other thing that we could see is that Texas and the governor of Texas, they are now going after CARE, and they are now in the middle of a lawsuit. And Greg Abbott let everyone know that they have made progress in the legal fight against CARE, and they basically wanted the full donor list of this organization. And you have to remember, Greg Abbott declared them as a foreign terrorist organization, and they sued CARE for the donor list, the donor list, the donee list, and details for NIHAD AWAD's travel to 9 countries hosting Islamic terror. And the federal court granted the request. And this is what they did. CARE must produce documents identifying any foreign donor who gave $5,000 or more in total or per year, depending on the exact phrasing, to CARE Foundation or the related Washington Trust Foundation, limited to 2021 to 2024. This is not the full 10-year donor list of every U.S. donor that Texas originally demanded. They got a small portion of it. Some production of records on entities, persons who receive funds from CARE was ordered. CARE must produce itineraries and related documents for AWAD's trips to the specified countries where meetings involved Hamas, Muslim Brotherhood, and others. The court explicitly rejected the broader fishing expedition into all domestic U.S. donors over a decade, calling those demands overly broad. So Abbott got a lot of what he needed. And the other thing that we could see is that a lot of the red states right now are following what Texas is doing and also following Trump's model, where they seek to rid the Islamist influence in local lawmaking. Trump, he put this out on Truth, is from Just the News, and the red states now are passing their own legislation and running candidates focused on thwarting Islamic community development and reducing their influence. Texas Republicans are intensifying efforts to counter what they call security and cultural risks from the state's growing Muslim population, moves that dovetail Trump's America First priorities on immigration, vetting, and assimilation. And remember, they're trying to implement Sharia law. They're trying to go against assimilating into the United States, where they're saying we don't have to assimilate. Yes, you do. When you come to the United States, you assimilate into the United States. You follow the laws of the Constitution, the laws of the state. You don't come into the country and create your own laws that override the U.S. Constitution. There is no law that overrides the U.S. Constitution here. And if you like to have your own laws and your Sharia law, this is not the place. Because, again, if you're coming into the U.S. and you want to become a U.S. citizen, you assimilate to what we have here today. Just like if somebody was going into France or into the U.K., you would expect they would assimilate into those countries. But you could see with the deep state players in control, they don't have that happening. But again, if you're coming to the U.S., you assimilate into the U.S. We don't assimilate into what you believe. Now, we could see the people out in the U.K., since I just mentioned that, they've had enough of their installed leaders. And again, we have Starmer, we have Merz, we have Macron, we have the president of Spain, we have Meloni in Italy. I think eventually what's going to happen is all the people of all these different countries, they're going to have enough and they're going to be pushing these people out. And you can see with Starmer, Merz, and Macron, their poll numbers are in the dirt. And when you look at the UK, you could see the people, they want Starmer out. Disclosed TV put this out and said Starmer, when asked why he won't step aside as his popularity is dragging Labor down, says that he acknowledges the voters' widespread frustration, including some frustration with him personally, but attributes it to deep, long-term failures of the status quo. Let me translate this for you. I'm an installed person. Yes, I was placed in this position. I am not allowed to leave. My poll numbers can go to 0%. The people could hate me. The people could come in and try to get me out. I will never leave because I'm not allowed to. They haven't told me I'm allowed to leave because as of right now, they don't have a replacement. So basically, you could see these installed people, they could be polling at 5%, 10%. They're not going to leave. Eventually, they will because the people will rise up and they'll say they had enough. But you can see that we're not there yet. But the people, they're awake, they understand what's going on, and they're not buying what he's selling anymore. And you can see that every step of the way, what Trump is doing right now, he's showing the world, and not just the people in this country, but the world, how an actual leader runs his country. He's showing the world, you do things for the people. I'm a servant of the people. I work for the people. I represent the people. And every day that passes, you can see every move that he makes, he's doing it for the people, for this country. That's what all these elected people are supposed to be doing. But when you're installed, when you have a different master, that is not what happens. But look what he just did. He released 3 Polish and 2 Moldovan prisoners from the Belarusian and Russian detention. He put this out and said, thanks to my special presidential envoy, John Collet, we were able to push hard to make this release happen. My friend, President Karol Nawrocki of Poland, met with me last September and asked me to help secure Poczobut from Belarusian prison. Today, Poczobut is free due to our efforts. The United States delivers for our allies and friends. Thank you to President Lukashenko for his cooperation and friendship. So nice, President DJT. And if you notice, he's a statesman. This is what statesmen do. They negotiate with leaders. They negotiate to have prisoners release. And he's doing this across the globe. He's doing it for America. He's doing it everywhere. And the people of all the different countries around the world are watching this, and they're seeing this happen. Just like the people in this country, they're watching the treasonous people as they continue to release classified information. Margaret Brennan put this out and said, after hearing the Pentagon classified brief on Iran war impact on U.S. weapons stockpiles, Senator Mark Kelly says it's shocking how deep we have gone into these magazines. He said the Tomahawks, the ATACMs, the SM-3s, the THAAD rounds, Patriot rounds, so those interceptors rounds to defend ourselves have been hit hard. He says it'll take years to replenish those stockpiles, which could affect a hypothetical U.S. conflict with China. It's interesting that he picked China, isn't it? Well, Pete Hegseth responds and says, Captain Mark Kelly strikes again. Now he's blabbing on TV falsely and dumbly about a classified Pentagon briefing he received. Did he violate his oath again? Department of War legal counsel will review. Cynical Publius responds to this and says, Senator Mark Kelly, de-sedition is a malodorous ball of slime for many reasons, but most of all because of the way he deliberately harms our nation while clinging to deceitful shreds of plausible deniability to cover his rancid slime trails. 2 examples: sedition, plausible deniability. All I did was remind service members of their duty to not follow unlawful orders. Reality, Kelly encouraged U.S. military members to refuse to follow lawful orders they disagree with politically by pretending they are unlawful orders. 2, unlawfully revealing classified information, plausible deniability. All I did was repeat what Secretary Hegseth said in public hearings. Reality, Hegseth made generic allusions publicly about the industrial base ability to replenish stocks of precision munitions. What Hegseth says was unclassified. Kelly, OTOH, went into specific regarding stockpiles of specific munitions, listing them by name. More importantly, he made clear that the information he was stating publicly came from a classified briefing. One of the keys to handling classified info is to never confirm or deny the accuracy of the info if it is ever discussed in a non-classified form. Kelly specifically confirmed classified information. This is a grotesque OPSEC breach. I find Kelly so morally objectionable because of his sleazeball behavior. He knows exactly what he's doing, and he knows his brain-dead Democrat goon enablers will en masse repeat his plausible deniability lies to protect him. Kelly is one of the most disgusting creatures ever to crawl out of the primordial ooze of the D.C. swamp. Disgusting. Now, that's very interesting. I wonder if Pete Hegseth and the rest of the team might have put out this information trying to trap Mark Kelly in all this and gather more evidence against him. Let's see how that plays out, because that's going to be very, very interesting. But you can see that the proposal that Iran now returned to President Trump is completely unacceptable, which we kind of knew. Because remember, Trump now is doing what? He's breaking the deep state's will in Iran. He's breaking the proxy army's will in Iran. And he needs time for the 2 factions to split apart and the faction that is dealing with Trump to become stronger and stronger to override the deep state proxy faction. That is what Trump is waiting for. Trump, he put this out and said, I've just read the response from Iran's so-called representatives. Remember, so-called representatives. I don't like it. Totally unacceptable. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President DJT. And you have to remember, he is under no pressure whatsoever. The U.S. has its standing army, its navy, its weapons, It has everything. We control the strait. Iran is in a very tough position. They're taking the orders from the deep state players because, again, Obama, Hillary Clinton, and the rest of the deep state players, they don't want Trump to go in there and get what? The uranium. They don't want to lose control over the fear pricing of energy across the globe. But every step of the way, they're losing their grip. They're losing their power. And Trump, he wants the uranium because, again, there's an isotope that's associated with it, which means he can prove that Obama, Hillary Clinton, and many other people, they sold it and it landed in Iran. Maybe it even landed in Venezuela. Rapid Response 47 put this out and said, POTUS on Iran's enriched uranium buried deep under rubble. We'll get that at some point, Trump says. We have it surveilled. I did a thing called Space Force, and they are watching that. If anybody got near the place, we will know about it, and we will blow them up. Brian Cates responds to this and says, who do you think he's sending a message to here? Iran's mullahs running a proxy state for who? So who is he really threatening here? If they try to go there and get the uranium so they can try to hide it in a new location, what capability did he reveal about Space Force? Why did he choose to bring it up now? And additional, given Space Force is up there and our government now under Trump control in a way it never was in the first term, is making key admissions and rolling out declassifications of UAPs, UFOs. And they do have the capability of seeing just about everything moving around down here. Keep your eye on the declassification certain people don't want you to be paying attention to. The bad guys launched a massive online psyop the other day about the UAP declass, the 24 videos starting the declass, coming in waves over the next few months. Nobody cares about that. Trump is going to show you the equipment that we actually have that can monitor all of this. And basically, he built the military up so we have these capabilities, and he's showing the country what we have. Now, what's very interesting is that the Trump DOE, they have removed highly enriched uranium from Venezuela in a major nuclear security win. So according to the U.S. Department of Energy, National Nuclear Security Administration, the DOE, the NNSA, worked with international partners to remove all enriched uranium from Venezuela. The agency described the operation as a major non-proliferation success that reduced risk to both South America and the U.S. homeland. So let's see. He removed the uranium from Venezuela. We're getting the uranium from... Let me ask you a question. Do you owe back taxes or have unfiled tax returns? Or have you filed every year but still keep owing? Did you retire and suddenly get hit with a tax bill you didn't expect? Are you a business owner with messy books and a balance you can't afford? Maybe you pulled money from your 401k or IRA early and now the IRS wants its share. However your tax issue started, the outcome is the same. Your balance is not going down, penalties grow, interest compounds, and many of you are about to owe again for this upcoming tax year with no plan in place. Stop what you're doing and call Tax Network USA. The IRS is not waiting. The IRS is enforcing collections through wage garnishment, bank levies, and property seizures. They can even file for you without your consent. This is where Tax Network USA comes in. With over 15 years in business, there hasn't been a tax case they haven't seen resolved. They specialize in tax controversies and help taxpayers nationwide get back on track by resolving back taxes and unfiled returns once and for all. Whether you owe tens of thousands or $10 million, their team has resolved over $1 billion in tax debt. They can do the same for you, but you have to call them now. They are offering a free investigation call with the IRS. After that investigation, they put a clear case plan in place to resolve your tax problem and get you back on track. This is about using your legal rights to take control before the government sets the terms for you. Do not wait for another IRS letter or a frozen bank account. Call 866-686-1911. That is 866-686-1911. Or visit TNUSA.com/X22 or click the link below. Iran. We know that Syria most likely had uranium in Syria because there was another location that they were creating nuclear weapons. And North Korea has uranium. And I do believe this probably has to do with the deep state players. Now, why is he collecting all the uranium? Yes, he needs the evidence. He's also keeping us safe. He's securing the uranium that the deep state intended to hold the world hostage with. Think scare event. That's very, very interesting.
Let's see how this all plays out. This is going to be very, very interesting. But you can see every step of the way, Iran is not winning. Trump is basically putting pressure on them and waiting this out. Tony Saruga explains. Trump's strategy with Iran is working. The louder Tehran's ultra-hardliners, called super revolutionaries, yell, and the crazier the stunts they pull, the more obvious it is the pressure is getting to them. You can actually see the cracks forming now. Inside Iran, ultra-hardliner factions are viciously turning on their own public. Members of Iran Hardliner Endurance Front are calling talks with the United States a strategic mistake. They want their Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi removed from the negotiating team entirely, so are openly accusing their government of surrendering to America. That's not the behavior of a regime that sounds in control, does it? I've watched and analyzed intel on Iran for years. Iran's ruling establishment always projected an image of poised discipline and unity. Every speech sounded rehearsed and rigid. Every military parade carried the same message. America weakens. Iran stands firm. Now the fractures are obvious. Trump recognized this early on in the war when he described Iran's leadership as fractured and in disarray. Critics dismiss it as political theater. The regime's own factions are exposed each other in public. Hardliners are attacking moderates. Moderates are warning about the economic collapse. Clerics are trying to calm the streets. Parliament members are turning negotiations into ideological warfare. U.S. pressure forces hidden tensions into the open. Hardliners are sabotaged negotiations by creating dirty tricks, such as the IRGC forces firing on ships despite diplomatic promises of an open waterway. They use media outlets like Kaihan to attack moderates and claim foreign negotiations are a gift to the enemy. Trump is winning. He's just waiting it out. This is why just the other day he mentioned that the faction that he's dealing with, they're getting weapons. You see, he's waiting for them to gain strength. He's waiting for them to get stronger. And all he has to do is wait. And it's getting harder and harder for the IRGC. Soon, the people that Trump has been dealing with, they're going to override the deep state players. And these people are going to take over. That is when everything changes. And I think every step of the way, he tests to see where they're at. And I think we're very, very close. This is why he says a deal is coming very, very soon. So if weapons are being transferred into Iran, the people are getting the weapons. They're getting stronger, more brazen. He's just waiting for that moment for them to say, yeah, we're in complete and utter control. And I think he's getting word that we're almost there. And this is why the deep state players are so panicked. And Trump, what is he doing? He's reversing everything the deep state players have done. He's exposing everything that they're doing, and then he's reversing everything that they're doing. And you have to remember, they've been trying to reduce the population in every single country. If you notice, the populations in most of the countries across the globe, they've been declining. This was by design by the deep state players. This way they can bring in their people that they wanted. And this is what they've been doing. If you notice, the trans community is very, very similar to the Islamic community. They both like to have sex with children. Think about that for a second. Eventually and this is why they use the trans community, they wanted you to get used to it. So this way they can then move you into the Islamic community. And eventually they would get rid of all those other individuals that they didn't need anymore, probably the entire trans community. And they just wanted everyone to get used to having sex or marrying young children. I do believe that's what this was all about from the very, very beginning. But Trump now is reversing everything that they have done. And this is why he has now announced that the Department of Labor is issuing a new rule to formally create a fertility benefit option for employers that can be offered to all employees outside of their normal health insurance plan. Because again, the deep state players, they were trying to reduce the population. They had abortions. They told people not to get married. They infect us with the vaccines. They make us infertile. The foods also assist with this. Trump now is going to reverse all this. Trump War Room put this out and said the Trump White House just launched bombs.gov, a one-stop resource for new and expecting mothers with access to pregnancy support, nutrition guidelines, health centers, and Trump accounts to jumpstart your child's financial future. So this is all about getting us back on the right track. And I do believe this is exactly what's going to happen because he's putting everything into this to make sure that this country grows by leaps and bounds. And I do believe we're going to start to see that. Now, the other thing we can see the deep state players are doing, they're trying to use the hantavirus, and maybe they're trying to push another pandemic to see where they stand. And I do believe most likely they're testing the waters. Now, part of the agenda was to try to drive the U.S. back into the WHO, to try to drive Argentina back into the WHO. That is not going to happen. And at this point, they won't be able to get this off the ground. And I think they're starting to realize this. They wanted to see where everyone stands on plandemics. And you can see the Trump administration is not buying what they're selling. They don't have control over social media. Those doctors that are going to speak out, they're going to speak out. So I do believe their little push right now to try to scare the population, not just in this country, but around the world, is not working. Eric Doherty on Telegram put this out and said, Trump NIH chief Jay Bhattacharya confirms hantavirus is not COVID, meaning no lockdowns and no panic. We wouldn't have lockdown anyway. This is not COVID, and we don't want to treat it like COVID. We want to treat it with the hantavirus protocol that were successful in containing outbreaks in the past. We shouldn't be panicking when the evidence doesn't warrant it. And again, you have to remember, this does not pass human to human. Basically, those individuals that took the COVID vaccine, they already have that ailment built in. So when they do test, they say, oh, yeah, look, they got it. Oh, look, this person right next to them. But we have to look at who had the actual vaccine. If the people on the cruise ship, if they had the vaccine and everyone around them had the vaccine, then yeah, pretty much almost everyone's going to have it. And we saw this during COVID. Those people that got the vaccine, why do you think they kept getting COVID? I mean, they try to make up all these stories. Oh, no, it only works for a little short period of time, and then you get it, after that. But no, the vaccine never worked. It only gave you COVID. It gave you a lot of other ailments, and they're trying to use this because remember, what was the real pandemic? It was the vaccine. This way, they could create pandemics moving forward. This was always their ultimate plan, to implant you with all of this. So this way, when they needed to scare you, when they needed to control you, when they need you to take other drugs, it was easy to do. The problem with all of this is that there's a huge amount of people that never took this vaccine. So what they're trying to do is not going to work. And I do believe with hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, this is going to make it much more difficult for them to do because this time around, or even moving further out, they don't have the censorship capabilities. They might have it in Europe. They might have it in Australia. They might have it in New Zealand, especially China too. But here in the United States, that's a game changer. And once people start to see what's going on in the States, they say, well, why is it so different there compared to our country? See, it's not going to work this time around. But the other thing that's very interesting, and Pharmacy in USA put this out, John Hopkins patented a dewormer for brain cancer, and nobody talked about it. The same compound mocked online as an animal dewormer, mebendazole. Here's what most people never heard. John Hopkins University, September 7, 2021, patent 11,110,079B2. Patent title, mebendazole, polymorph for treatment and prevention of tumors. What the patent discusses, mebendazole reaching brain tumors in effective concentrations, proposed use in glioblastoma therapy, potential use in other cancers and chemoprevention approaches. For years, the public heard horse dewormer, conspiracy theory, misinformation. Meanwhile, one of the top medical institutions in the world quality secured a cancer-related patent involving the exact same class of repurposed compounds people who were mocked for discussing. One thing is becoming impossible to ignore. The conversation around repurposed cancer drugs is getting louder every single day. And I do believe if we expand this to hydroxychloroquine, expand this to ivermectin, I think we're going to start to realize that we've had the cure for cancer for quite a while. And I think as time goes on, people are going to realize that we also have the cure for the common cold. We have the cure for the flu, the cure for COVID, the cure for hantavirus. Because again, if we have ivermectin, which is an antiviral type of medication, I do believe these could be used for all of this. And this is why the deep state players fought so hard to make sure that people didn't understand this. This is why Fauci went ahead and overdosed people and killed them so people would never find out. This is why the Lancet produced a fake publication to make you think that it didn't work. Why would they do this? Was it just for COVID? Or they didn't want anyone to realize that it would help with all the viruses? Because if it helps with all the viruses, how could they then release another pandemic? They couldn't. Remember, they were giving you the vaccine, so later they would be able to release the pandemic when they wanted. And now they can't do it. It's all falling apart. Just like their entire money laundering operation is falling apart. Think about it. Mamdani was with Obama and they were talking about daycare. Remember, Obama started all of this. He's the architect. The daycare centers and many other learning centers, or the Leering centers, this is all part of their money laundering scheme. This is how they move the money around. Yes, they move it with paintings and other things, but they also move a lot through all of this. Now, think about it. Bernie Sanders is out there and he's saying, in the United States, we need hundreds of new hospitals and health clinics. We need thousands of new child care centers. We need millions of new units of affordable housing. We do not need to spend another $500 billion on the military for endless wars. That's interesting. Because Matt Von Swall says, hey, Bernie, is this you? Pointing to his X post going back in time. And it says, I look forward to seeing Congress provide in the very near future a financial support for Ukraine, which is valiantly struggling against Russia aggression. And yeah, he was involved in supporting Ukraine, sending the money to Ukraine. And Trump is ending the endless wars. There's no war in Venezuela. There'll be no war in Iran. There'll be no war in Ukraine. Because he's finishing what they started. And think about why he's telling everyone that we need all those things, child care, learning centers, and the rest, because their money is drying up. So they want to create new ones. But it's not going to work because they're all being exposed. Think about what's happening with Ilhan Omar. Fresh court exhibits from the massive $250 million Feeding Our Future fraud trial have revealed that Ilhan Omar's name appears multiple times in email chains and text messages with convicted fraudster Amy Bach, the mastermind behind the largest COVID-era fraud scheme targeting children's nutrition programs. According to trial exhibits unsealed in Amy Bach's case, Omar's office was directly involved in communicating with the fraud ring. According to resurfaced trial exhibits from Bach's 2025 conviction on wire fraud conspiracy and bribery charges, one email chain between Bach and Omar's office was literally titled Elon's Office. And you could see that she is involved in all this. This is why they shut down the investigations, because the criminal syndicate protects their criminals. This is why the Democrats shut it all down. They made sure that you couldn't get any information. This is why you can never have an investigation. Take a small town. If the small town is run by the mafia, they control the judges, the mayor's in on it, the prosecutors are in on it, the fake news in that town is in on it. How do you bring the organization to trial? How do you have you can't. You need an outside agency to actually investigate and bring charges. Why do you think Trump has the military? It's the outside agency. Military intelligence overrides the three-letter agencies. Military intelligence has been gathering this information. Military intelligence is going to be the outside organization that brings down the criminal syndicate. Think about this for a second. Because once again, just like the small town, you need an outside organization. Because everyone in that town is corrupt. Everyone in D.C., everyone across the country where they're having all this fraud. They're all part of the system. They put the judges, they put the prosecutors, they put all these people into place to protect their system. The military is not part of their system. So let's see how this all plays out. This is why Joe Biden right now and his team, they're trying to stop Trump's DOJ from releasing the 70 hours of audio tapes of the former president's conversations. That's very, very interesting. So the DOJ was preparing to release damning audio of Biden's interview with the former special counsel, Robert Hur. The department is also going to release 2017 audio recordings of conversations with his ghostwriter in which he disclosed classified information. Joe Biden and his team are trying to intervene. So let's see how this all plays out. This is going to be very, very interesting moving forward. The other thing that's very interesting is if you notice, the Supreme Court made a ruling about redistricting, and it seems that none of the blue states right now are actually redistricting. The question is why? Wall Street Maverick says, notice how there aren't any blue states trying to redistrict in response to the VA Supreme Court ruling. It's not because they wouldn't want to. It's because blue states are already so gerrymandered. There's barely anything left they can do to gain more Dem seats. And that is absolutely true. But since Obama's plan with Spanberger failed, where they were trying to gerrymander the state, now they hatched a new plan. They're going to pack the Supreme Court by lowering retirement age to 54 after losing the gerrymandering map. So, okay, the Supreme Court was the problem. So now we need to get rid of the Supreme Court the way we know it today. So they're going to lower the mandatory retirement age for judges from 73 to 54, exactly the age of the youngest sitting justice, and force every single justice off the bench immediately. Unbelievable. Is this going to work? Most likely not. Let's see how this all plays out. This is going to be very, very interesting. Steve Scalise says, just so we're clear, Democrats want to rewrite the Virginia Constitution because the state Supreme Court rejected their unconstitutional maps. For a party that loves to chant no kings, this is very undemocratic. Absolutely. But you could see that Trump, he put out a cure for Trump derangement syndrome today, because you can see all these people that have been going against Trump, all these crazy people on the streets, all these people on social media, probably family, friends, they all have TDS. And Trump and team, they finally figured out a cure. And this is what they put out. Treatment, trusting in Trump, listen to national anthem, limit fake news, don't be a panicking. It's very, very simple. Now, the other thing that we could see is that what we've been saying is absolutely true. The FBI, the DOJ, the rest of the agencies, they were not there to protect the American people. They were not there to hunt down criminals. They were not there to do any of that. They were there to protect their criminal syndicate, period. The end, that's it. Wall Street Apes put this out and says, Kash Patel says that the FBI under Biden purposely didn't hunt down the Muslim suicide bomber named Mohammed Sharafullah, who killed 13 Americans. The suicide bombing happened during the evacuation from Afghanistan after the Taliban takeover. Kash says that after he became FBI director, when Democrats left office, it only took them 2 weeks to hunt down the bomber in Pakistan, arrest him, and bring him here to face justice. This means Democrats purposely let the man who killed 13 U.S. service members killed, 11 Marines, 1 Navy corpsman, 1 Army soldier walk free. Who needs enemies when you have Democrats? In 2 weeks, the first 2 weeks on the job, Kash says, I went to the Pakistanis and I got the Abbey Gate bomber who just got convicted last week in 2 weeks. So basically, their system that they set up was not to go after actual criminals. They don't care about the American people. It was to protect the criminal syndicate. Awaken Outlaw says, the abrogation of duty here is jaw-dropping. Why would our so-called premier law enforcement agency purposely not pursue this guy to the ends of the earth? Instead, they just let him walk away scot-free. Explain this away, other than the obvious, that the FBI was compromised at the highest level. And that's exactly what it was. Boom. That tells you everything you need to know. Just like Trump now is letting everyone know that we have the evidence. We have the people from Venezuela that actually knows how the elections were rigged. He's a Venezuelan engineer. Trump now is building the narrative, preparing the country. The country is going to learn that the deep state players, the same people that went after him from the very, very beginning, the same people that have been running the country, treasonous people, that they orchestrated the overthrow of the United States government. Red Wave Press put this out and said, Charles Atkinson, there is a Venezuelan engineer whistleblower that has provided your administration with a lot of information and documentation alleging vote rigging in the U.S. elections, including in 2020, through an operation engineered in part by foreign adversaries and centered in Venezuela. Is anything going to come of that? Trump says, a little bit. Well, I'm familiar with voter fraud because we have a lot of it. The 2020 election was rigged. Anytime you have mail-in voting, you're going to have a rigged election. Democrats are fighting us on the Save America Act. When somebody says we don't want voter identification, that means they want to cheat. Pass the Save America Act. Absolutely. So basically, this tells you everything you need to know. We're going to see that information. There's a reason why he went into Venezuela. There's a reason why he's taking these people, because, again, he's building his case. Rasmussen Report says, and this is Maria Bartiromo and Kash Patel speaking on April 19, 2026. Maria says, but the specific question I asked you was on election integrity and whether or not you have any information to verify what President Trump says all the time, which is the elections were rigged. Kash says, yes. So what we're going to do is we're folding that into our entire conspiracy case, and we will let the prosecution speak for him. But we have the information that backs Trump's claims. But because it's an ongoing prosecution investigation, I can't get ahead of the DOJ and the president. But President Trump speaks truthful when he says that. Absolutely. Because again, in the end, Trump needs to show the country what really happened. This way we can actually secure the elections for the midterms. This way we can use the EO. And I do believe he's going to use this at the right time, at the right moment, right before the midterms, where most likely they'll pass the Save America Act. And once it's passed, it won't be enough time to implement everything. So Trump will say, I will, according to the law that we just passed, I will also implement an executive order to back up that law and allow us to do the basics right now. Voter ID, one-day voting, paper ballots, no mail-in, no nothing. And at this point, the D's are screwed. And this is why they're planning for after the midterms. This is why they're using lawfare, preparing lawfare and their lawsuits for after the midterms. And they're preparing riots. They're preparing everything else. But first, I do believe they'll start with the lawsuits because they're going to convince the country that Trump cheated in the election. Let's see how this all plays out. Trump, he put this out on Truth. He said, Palestinian Chuck Schumer is hiring Eric Holder, famous for handing guns to Mexican cartels under the Barack Hussein Obama administration, as part of Democratic-led election integrity group that will no doubt try to suppress Republican voters and interfere in our elections. Furthermore, Mark Elias, a terrible lawyer with horrible track record, is also involved. This is the same disgusting individual who was responsible for the fake Russia dossier from a foreign nation to meddle in the 2016 election, which I won in historic fashion. The Democrats are totally unhinged, and we will not allow them to threaten the integrity of our elections. During my historic election in 2024, when I won every single swing state, I decisively won both the electoral and popular votes by wide margins. The Republicans had an election integrity army in every single state to preserve the sanctity of each legal vote. We will be doing the same again in 2026, but it will be much bigger and stronger. All Americans should have their voices be heard by casting a vote. Be assured this election will be fair. President DJT. I think what he's building up to right now is when we use the Save America Act and that passes, and he uses the EEO to back all of this up, and he's telling everyone, come out and vote. What we're going to see is that the D's, they're going to get no votes whatsoever. Very, very few. It's going to be minimal. And people across the country are going to see what a difference it is. Remember, when Kamala Harris was running, what did they have to do? They had to bring her up to where Obama, Clinton, and everybody else was. Not Biden. Biden, they brought him way over Trump because Trump forced them to do that. They had to bring her up to that mid-range level. Her votes were very, very low. They used the cheating system to do that. When Trump removes the cheating system and we, the people, come out to vote in droves, it's like a red wave. I mean, really think about it. I do believe it's going to be a red wave. What are you going to see? Well, all you got to do is think to yourself, let's see, if we remove the cheating from Kamala, maybe she was getting, 10, 20%? What are we going to see? We're going to see that we, the people, voting for the Republicans, there are a lot more votes than anyone could ever imagine. And they're going to see that the Ds, they're not getting any votes. Now, I do believe Trump, this is going to be done on purpose to show the country that they have cheated for a very long time. Plus, he's leading the deep state players, the Ds, down the path where they can now say, hey, look, you see why it's so lopsided? Trump cheated. He's doing this on purpose. He's bringing them down this path. He wants them to go down this path because this way they can prove how they rigged the election. Because you have to remember, if they're going to use lawfare, if they're going to use lawsuits, he's going to produce that evidence. It's going to be shown to the world that they've been cheating for a very long time. This is not going to work out in their best interest. But I do believe what they're doing is they're just using this to delay. That's all they're doing. They don't really want it to go to court and get an actual ruling or discovery or anything like that. So I do believe they're going to try to continually delay this as long as possible. But let's see how this all plays out. This is going to be very, very interesting. The Trump War Room put this out, and this is a post from Trump, and it says, the radical left Democrats, yes, Democrats, must fail. Our country is at stake. President DJT. And then it says based. Absolutely. But you can see every step of the way, Trump now is the hunter. He's hunting all these people down, forcing them into the light. He wants everyone to see their money laundering scheme. He wants everyone to see how they manipulated government, how they manipulated the agencies. He wants everyone to see how they were using the cartels, how they're using the terrorists across the globe, how they were fixing the energy prices. He wants everyone to see all of it. And this is why he is now the hunter. He actually said it in the Oval Office. He's no longer the hunted. He is the hunter. And basically what's happening right now, he's going after the deep state players one by one. He's picking them off, exposing them. And yes, this is going to accelerate as time goes on because once again, he has all the leverage. The deep state players, they don't. They're scrambling. They're doing whatever they possibly can to survive. You can see Mark Elias, he's panicked. Obama is panicked. They're trying to regroup. He's forcing them together. The people can see it clearly, and it's going to get worse and worse for them. Why? Because the Patriots are in control. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.